So hello, welcome to studio class. So today we have Alex Bender. Alex, waiting for everyone. Hello. So Alex and I have known each other for almost 10 years now, and holy mess. Um, Alex is a professional musician in New York City and making a living as a professional musician way successfully in New York City. Plays with many shows and has been heard on a lot of recordings. And I posted his resume on the studio Facebook page. Um, but I basically just wanted to have a small format for this, basically just a brief introduction. That was pretty much it. I know Alex doesn't want me to go into any more detail than that. But if you guys do have questions about that, we can get into that. But then we go into a discussion, and Alex has a few things he'd like to discuss today. And this can be a free discussion that happens. And then a question and answer session is going to happen as well. And then at the end, there could be some brief playing as well that can happen. But we're basically just gonna just treat this as free as it can, as if he were in the band hall with us, and we would just be talking, having a question and answer session, and then we do a playing session afterwards. But I believe so. Logan and Daryl, you guys are down to play, but we'll get to that later. But without further ado, Alex, I leave the floor to you, man. Let's start this convo.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Good to be here with you all. What a crazy time we're in. And it's wild to be having a class with people in Arkansas and get to meet you all. So I'm just as thrilled to be here and really grateful to Dave for having me. This is going to be fun. So we have an hour. I thought that Dave wanted me to share a little bit of my story, just so you know, because I was basically sitting in your place about 10 years ago. So not too far out of school, but just sharing a little bit about how I got from one place to the next. And then we're going to go through about 4 or 5 different main topics. And hopefully by about 6:30, we're having some people play. So that's the whole point of a class like this, is to get to share our performance with other people and then get a little feedback, and you'll all take away something from this. So, and if at any time you have a question, you can either use that hand raise thing, which I don't even know if I'll see where that pops up if you hand raise, or you can literally just do the old school fashioned way. I know that version too. So either way. But yeah, I started my musical journey in kindergarten with piano. I was forced to sort of take piano lessons from my parents made me do that, and started to really like it. In 4th grade, I switched to the trumpet. Not switched, I kept playing piano until my senior year of high school, and after that too, but was inspired by musicians later on, like Doc Severinsen and Wynton Marsalis, Maurice Andre, and Maynard Ferguson. And some of you may know some of those names. Those might be some of the biggest all-stars in our trumpet world. And they come up from a varied background too. So I was exposed to jazz and high notes and classical and piccolo from an early age, and just really, really liked all of that. And that's always sort of been my interest, was to be able to do everything. And then in 6th grade, I started private lessons with a trumpet teacher he was my high school band director. And I got really lucky because this guy was also part of the Tommy Dorsey jazz orchestra, Tommy Dorsey band. He was a trumpet player in that before he started teaching. So I did get fortunate to get to study with him from 6th grade to 12th grade. I ended up going to James Madison University in Virginia for my undergraduate degree. And I did a music education degree, much like many of you. I did a jazz studies minor, and I was just a few classes away from a performance degree. But at that point, I was more interested in the music education degree, but really loved performing, and that's what I knew I wanted to be doing. I don't think it was until my junior year that I even ever heard of grad school. And that may be something new. Have you guys heard of grad school? Is that a concept that you've heard of? Cool. That's just an option out there. And it was in my junior year that I decided to check that out. And in my senior year, I auditioned for grad schools. And I had also been working at Busch Gardens in the amusement park over the summer, and a friend of mine in the band had worked on cruise ships. So he told me about cruise ships and that kind of opportunity. And I auditioned for both at the same time, basically in my senior year. And I figured, oh, well, I'll see what happens. So I auditioned and thankfully got into Manhattan School of Music and got a job with Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines at the same time. So I had to sort of decide what to do. So I don't know. Does anyone want to guess what I chose? Yeah. Alexis?
Did you do the cruise ship?
Oh, I did do the cruise ship.
Yeah, there it
But
is.
what I learned was that you could defer an acceptance to a school for a year. So without having to re-audition, you're absolutely right, Alexis. I went off and I got some professional experience outside of the professional experience that I had through school and through some other gigs that I was doing there. But I got to go work on a cruise ship for a year, and then came back to school. But the fun thing was, on that cruise ship, that was the first time I was ever in my life where I wasn't required to have a trumpet lesson that week. There was no one there checking up on me. I was the only trumpet player on the entire ship. And I remember having a moment in my first week there, and I set up my practice room and backstage behind the theater, and I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at the trumpet. I'm like, wow, like we don't have to do this anymore. Like, there's no one pushing us. And I realized this was the first moment that it came on me, that it was up to me. Am I going to continue doing this? Is this really my love? Is this really what I want to do? And the answer was yes. But I did have a moment, and I think it's okay to have that moment, because we may have been coming up from fourth grade. There's always something to prepare. And at some point in your life, you're going to have that moment where there's no one pushing you. And the wild thing is, we're in a time right now that in a lot of ways, there's no deadlines coming up. And, it's a different world. There may be some deadlines, but it's about finding that inner discipline and finding the passion that you have for the instrument or for music, and wanting to continue on. So I had that moment, and you may be feeling that moment too. And I just want you to know that that's okay. And to try and dig into that. If you feel those kind of things, find out why you want to play music. What is it about it that makes it special to you? So anyway, I went back to Manhattan School of Music then after my first year. After a year of doing cruise ships, I left. A lot of people said, oh, you're never going to go to school. And maybe Dave even said that.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Well, not to you, but I've heard, yeah, they said.
I don't think we knew each other at that point yet.
No.
Right? So I guess Dave isn't one of the culprits, but other people were saying, oh, you're not going to go back to school. So I definitely was interested, and I knew I definitely wanted to go to, I wasn't going to pass up getting accepted into Manhattan School of Music. So I went and studied my first year at Manhattan School of Music, and about halfway through, I got the urge to go and play again. So that's when I sent in some resumes to national touring companies, which got me onto a national tour, the South Pacific National Tour, which then Dave Torres, your teacher, got me hired for the Beauty and the Beast National Tour. So he was the trumpet player on the original tour, and he got a gig with Ringling Brothers. So when he left, he and I had only talked on the phone, but I think a lot through that and his recommendation, I got hired to replace him, which we will come back to. But the importance of our friends become our colleagues, and our colleagues become our bosses and employers. And you are in an environment right now that the 9 of us in this room, we are all colleagues. We will be colleagues. We can be friends now, and we'll be colleagues soon. And this is how we get hired in the music world, is by the connections and the relationships that we build. This word networking? Yeah. I don't love that word networking. I'd rather think of it as creating authentic relationships. You're building friendships with these people that you're studying with in school. You're building relationships with Dave. You're building relationships with anyone who comes into your school and crosses paths with you. So,
and if I could say one thing, Alex, and it's not only in music. I mean, there's a whole host of careers that this applies to as well. I mean, you apply for things, but really knowing people and those relationships you foster between and your life experiences, and also your just general experiences in life. I mean, they can come back and help out in many ways.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to point that out, because sure that we do have a wide range of non-majors and majors in this Zoom session as well.
Yes. That just reminded me, it's nice to know that every other field is doing this too. It's not just us. No. So no matter what you're doing, business or if you become a music teacher, whatever we do, there's always this connecting, this networking, but it's building relationships with people like that they're friends. So I think it just takes the ickiness off that word a little bit to me. And I did that tour, then I went back to school and I finished my master's, which people were surprised by. Again, I mean, mostly just my parents.
That's when I told you weren't going to go back.
Yeah, maybe that's what
Yeah,
did.
that's when I told you. Yeah.
Sorry.
But I mean, it's fine. I think you did Be in the Beast for about a year, maybe 9 months to a year, something like that.
Yep, something like that.
Yeah.
Just enough to get back for the next school year.
Right.
And because you can also take a leave of absence if necessary for a gig. And basically from there, thankfully I won. I got to start subbing on a Broadway show called Cinderella. That was in 2013. And that fall, I won the audition for the Radio City Music Hall Orchestra to play trumpet for the Rockettes at the Christmas show in New York. And from there, that led me to getting my first Broadway show the next fall. And a lot of things happened in what seems like a very linear path. I want you to know that that is not necessarily a common way to go. I feel very lucky that it's worked out in what looks to be a linear passage. And if you feel like your path isn't linear, I want you to know that that's the norm. It's very like, we're not in a linear path kind of career. You may feel like you're up here for a bit, then it goes more like this, and you're sort of like bouncing up and down on an upward trajectory. And the other thing is, you don't need to compare to the person to your left or right how their career, how they're playing looks compared to yours. The nice thing is, brass playing is a very long game, and we can make big strides, but they take a long time. So it's not necessarily saying, oh, I'm not as good as this person, and therefore I'm not worthy of continuing. You keep at it because there's the inner drive within you. And that's the thing to latch on to. So your story may sort of have some comparisons to mine. Your story may seem a little different. But the thing is, we're all in a journey together. And as in this brass world, it is very, very cool, tight community where Dave and I haven't talked for, I don't know, actually he lived in my apartment for a little bit while I was in the Grand Canyon, camping for a bit. And every time we see each other, it's like old times. So that's just how it is. And we create really good relationships in the music world. And those will come back to be probably one of the most important things about you getting hired when you're on the level that you can play just as well as everyone else around you. The really cool thing about New York is everyone can play. So it's not really the playing that makes the difference about who gets hired. It's about how you make other people feel in a situation. It's about how you inspire them. It's about how everyone is comfortable around each other, and that you want to hire that person because of who they are as a person, not even really because of who they are as a player, because you could pick the next player and they're just as good of a player. So what's the thing that separates us? It's our human side. It's our person. And that becomes really important to start developing now. One of the greatest things I love about the Atom system that he's having a lot of you do is that I find it to be a very communal activity where you're playing the routine with a buddy, with someone else. And that is a huge skill set that you can learn now in college. That translates for the rest of your life in terms of the personality and the personal skills. So keep doing that. And I encourage you, if you haven't been doing that, to jump in with a group and play the Atoms routine as a group. There's a lot of really good benefits to that.
Yeah, it's hard nowadays, and I've made a couple of recordings and put them on the app and whatever that they can play along with. But they're starting to fire up even more, like friends and myself, even like starting Zoom warm-up sessions so that we can play together or something like that. You know what I mean? So we actually did our first one this week, but we're going to start doing that more. It's difficult, but I mean, it's possible, but it's something,
right.
You know, it's something to keep it going. Actually, and not to cut you off. I know you don't want to talk intro the whole time or whatever about yourself, but yeah. So talk about, for instance, this is my first question, like a day in the life, and then your musicality in the pit.
Got it.
And mentality.
Mentality.
Hey, Mr. Chorus.
Yeah,
Start with day in the life and then musicality and mentality.
cool. Do we have a question from someone? I thought I heard.
Uh,
Oh, we do.
I'm gonna leave the session real quick because my camera isn't working,
Oh, okay, that's fine,
and
Caleb.
then
Cool.
Go ahead.
All right.
All right, go
A
ahead.
day in the life. So we're all sort of living a day in the life in terms of
Yeah.
the wild thing about this situation right now with coronavirus is that there is even less of a routine and a set schedule for any of us to be in. And in New York City, when the coronavirus isn't going on, as a professional musician, I basically have my day free and my nights for performing. So I will, and some people add in teaching and other things during the day, and I would suggest that everyone develop more than one thing, more than just playing the trumpet. Most musicians in New York City, or most musicians in any top city or anywhere, are, especially in other cities that aren't a big city, have another skill set that they are tapping into. Say if it's teaching music or writing books about it or writing music or arranging anything. So it's rare to just be performing music. This is an example, like it's really fun to teach and give back to and do that. So strengthen those skills as just as much as your trumpet. But a day in the life, wake up. Generally for me, it's a little bit later in the morning because I've been out late playing. So let's say it's 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, I like to be playing. That's just sort of an apartment rule in New York City, that 10 to 10 is like when you can play instruments. So wake up at 9, get ready. I sort of like to start my day with some meditation or prayer. And that's sort of a new thing that I've been developing. But that just sort of sets me up for like my medicine of the day. And then warming up, yoga, breathing, very short amounts of both, but just to get my mindset right. And then my warm-up session. Then we'll be probably around lunchtime. So it's about an hour that I take just to settle into warming up for the day. In the afternoon, I might be working on adult boring things like grocery shopping or anything it could be, but I'll always try and get in a second practice session in the afternoon, which would be fundamentals, and those never go away from me. They're really important to my playing and to all of our playing, is to do fundamentals, and they never go away. It's just about trying to spice them up and make them fun. And then around 6 o'clock is when 6 or 7 o'clock is when I'm heading to a show, and I'll go play a Broadway show usually at night, or I'm working on other music during the day for a gig later in the week. Like every day sort of fluctuates, right. But it's just a comparison to today because we don't have our normal routine. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to waste time, and it's easy to get behind, and it's great because we have this bad situation that's going on. But the first point that I really sort of wanted to talk about was how to try and the idea of trying to turn a bad situation into a good situation. And I found with enough time to think, with creative thinking, with enough time, I like to challenge myself to take a bad situation and make it 3 times better than it would have been had we not been in coronavirus right now. So it takes creative thinking, and it may take some time, because like, say if you're stressed under pressure of having to come up with something 2 minutes later, you may need to just develop this a little bit. But
right.
Right now, my day in the life currently is I'm taking a course on neurology through the University of Chicago, trying to learn about how the brain works in terms of music and how all those things are happening up here. I'm taking a class on communication. I am studying some extra videos on the Caruso method, which is another thing like Adams that you can ask Dave about, or me about a little bit. Maybe we'll get a chance, but it's not important to get into right now. I'm trying to write down a lot of thoughts that I've been having on trumpet playing into a book that hopefully in the second half of this class, maybe we'll get into some of that. What are the other things I'm doing? Spending some quality time with my parents, like those kind of things. So,
Yeah, so you're currently in Pennsylvania, correct?
yes.
Yeah.
So I am in, my parents live in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I left New York City just before Broadway shut down, fearing that it was going to fearing that would all happen. So just trying to be as safe as possible. I know it's hard when we're in Arkansas to see it being as serious as New York City. But this is just a time to try. I'm just challenging you to try and think of how can I make this situation better and what you could apply to doing so. So there's some things that we could start doing tomorrow to make a better situation for ourselves. And these are things that I want you to carry through tomorrow for forever. The first major thing, I'm going to give you 5 things here. I want listening to a different album every day and listening actively, intently, taking notes on it while you're listening, just sitting on your bed, sitting at your desk, wherever you want to be outside, and really intently taking notes on any album. And certainly start off with some great trumpet players, move into other instruments, move into other styles, listen to different kind of things. If you're not listening to a certain style, if you don't know much about jazz, absolutely just start listening to it, start getting used to that. We learn styles by the same ways that we've learned language. We have to hear them, just like when we're a little baby. We didn't know how to speak. We have to hear our parents do it. We have to try and do it. We go, and we fail, but we try, all right?
Yep.
So we start by listening. And the biggest thing that I found as the difference, like, how I said, like in New York or in a big city or in any great players, that we can all play what's on the page. We can all sound great. We can all play really well. But what differentiates, I found, players is how strong their concept is and how many opinions they have already formed in their head about how the music should sound, how they want to play it. And the stronger those concepts are in your mind, that's what differentiates one person to another. Because we can all play the right notes, and it's just developing the sound in our head that we want to sound like, developing how we think those 8th notes should sound in this style of music, because 2 8th notes in one style is going to sound different from 2 8th notes in another. Mm-hmm. Triplets are going to sound, like everything could have a different intention behind it and a different way that it sounds based on the style. So is anyone right now getting a chance to just sit down and listen to some more music? Is anyone taking advantage? Has anyone maybe thought of it yet? Yeah, it's a hard one because we've been told, we got to practice the trumpet, right? And yes, we need to practice the trumpet. But if I could look back on one thing I wish I did better in college, and one thing I did well, but one thing I wish I still did better, was to sit down and take notes on an album, one album a day. It's 1 hour of your life, but it will come back and it pays dividends later. It pays you back as you go.
Now, what do you do, Alex, when you take down notes on an album?
Cool. Yeah. So I have like a Word document, and like I'll pull up today's Word document will be big band. So, and I may have created a list. I may have Googled like the top 50 big band albums that I want, the top 50 most important big band albums. And there's my list. And so then I'm going on to iTunes, I'm going on Apple Music, whatever it is, whatever you're using. And I'm trying to find the next album on the list. And I will take notes on I'm taking notes on the music in general, like about the composer, about the orchestrator, the arranger, in general, like how did he use the trumpets? How did he use the brass? But really a lot of times I'm listening to the individual lead player because that's the voice you can hear the best. So I'm listening to, say, the lead player of the jazz band or the principal trumpet player. And I'm thinking, what are they doing to interpret this music? Are they adding a little vibrato? Are they adding, how is their crescendo? How does their tone color change? How is their pitch center? Their articulations. Articulations are the big thing that changes from style to style. And so if you can sort of then, that's the first step is sort of listening to a lot of this stuff. And then if you hear something that you're inspired by, pick up the horn and try and copy that. Mm-hmm. Live in the recording and pretend like you're on stage with them and copy note for note. And this is called transcribing, and you can transcribe anything. Transcribing is known to be used as for jazz improvisation solos. But you can transcribe anything. I've transcribed the Tomasi trumpet concerto by ear so that it's getting inside your body in a different way rather than looking at the notes and playing it that way. Has anyone given it a shot to transcribe anything before? Yeah, a little bit? Cool. Yeah. I mean, great. Ask Dave if you want to know like some solos to start with. If you're thinking of jazz or if you're thinking of classical music, like you can transcribe anything, but just anything that you hear, even if it's just a measure or two, like whatever that measure or two that you're excited by, transcribe that. And then that becomes part of your concept. So we're stealing little pieces from all these artists. And that's why growing up listening to Maurice Andre and then listening to Maynard Ferguson and then listening to Doc Severinsen, like those all become part of you. And that's how you then speak. So it's pretty cool how just really compare it to remembering how, I mean, you wouldn't remember how you learned how to speak a language, but it's absolutely the same process. Anyone excited to go try and transcribe something? Yeah.
Yes.
It's really fun. It's
well,
really
actually, fun. Now, Tyler, you didn't do the Mozart concerto, but you did start writing your own. Is that right, Tyler?
Yes, sir. I added some diminished patterns actually to the cadenza. So
great.
For Mozart, is that 3 you're doing?
Yes, sir. It's 3, the first movement.
Yeah.
Great. That's
so
awesome.
he had a transcribed cadenza like written out for him.
Yes.
And he wrote out his own extensions to that cadenza.
That's beautiful. I love that. Yeah, that's a great thing to transcribe cadenzas and to copy them, and then in a couple more years, maybe you're writing your own, but you're already there. It's fantastic. So keep on that. And if you're, even if you're not tempted by this, I'm telling you, go try and do this. But
absolutely. And it was something, I think I remember doing it maybe in high school as well. Like whenever I would hear something I really liked, and those albums, obviously you have to like have the impulse of like listening to music you want to listen to. And that's not on the radio, obviously readily available. But something that you want to hear, like you're interested in. Like my father, luckily for me, I played trumpet, so he would always point me in a direction of, check this album out or check this album out, And we're all in college or associated with music now, so now we have the ability to know, have an access to like, what's good. Well, you can listen to this or this or this or this, you know what I mean? And if I like something, I remember like writing out, when I was in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, high school, writing out what that Maynard solo was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's stupid stuff like that, but that's the beginning of it. And that's putting your ear to work on what is actually happening. Okay. And then you wind up finding yourself getting into the inflections of the notes. And then you wind up, figuring out, that's not a D flat, that's a C sharp because this is in the key of blah, 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 that kind of stuff or whatever. So it just puts it in perspective and actually puts it in what you're thinking and what you're envisioning and hearing. Boom, it's right there in front of you. You know what I mean? It's a connection, and it becomes more ingrained in your soul and just knowledge.
That's the concept. Yeah. That's developing the concept that will then, because the person to your left or right will be able to play the same notes and the same rhythms and be able to play everything really well. But it's about how much did you develop that concept that Dave's talking about? Right. That will separate you from someone else in an audition, whether it's right now or whether it's in a few years. That's the difference. So listening is the big place. Playing in different styles. Let's just talk about efficiency and practice for just a second. Sure. I already alluded to having 3 practice sessions. I really like that idea of coming into a warm-up, then having 30 minutes to an hour off, then coming back to do fundamentals and sort of focusing on all the little technical things that we got to do on the trumpet. I mean, we always have to address those things. They don't go away. And then coming back to practicing your repertoire, or what I like to call development, because everything that we've done before this part of the day is essentially maintenance and is only going to keep us really at an even playing field. What we need to do is have that 3rd session, and that 3rd session is the most important for getting better. That's where it's the developing of things. So developing, learning new music, developing your etude or your solos. You can put your etudes in there, your ensemble music. The development session, the 3rd session, has to happen. Like that's where the growth happens. So really really get in that third session a day. We're playing, some people call it like, oh, this is when I start to play my music, but like we're playing, we need the fundamentals we're playing, we need to play that musically too. So I just like to think of that as development in that third session.
So building off of that, off of your practice sessions, Alex, going into the performance realm.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if anyone has any questions whatsoever, please just raise your hand or just let us know. But going into the performance realm, how do you deal with performance anxiety? How are you dealing with like musicality in the pit, like playing a redundant show over and over and over again? Like
Right.
a lot of students in rehearsals, obviously day after day after day for at least a month or two before they actually perform that concert. And then they got one concert, one shot. That's all you get. Do not miss your chance to go. You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Yeah.
Or one recital, one chance to do this thing right and get it recorded, and boom, that's what you did in college. There it is.
Yes.
How do you approach that right there?
Great. And this is cool because the musicality in a pit is like something that we've done over and over and over, and so therefore it's hard to pull that out every time. Mm-hmm. It's hard to you're not trying to recreate the same performance as yesterday. That's the thing. You're trying to take what you learned today, where you were at today, and apply it to your music that day. And with performing a one-time concert or a recital, there's absolutely nerves involved. There can be nerves involved, and it's just interesting because one is we do all the time and it's a struggle, and the other is we only do it once and it's a struggle. So where is this balance, right? I've found I'd like to we have to try and figure out, why are we playing this music? And if we know why we're playing the music and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to say, because as musicians, we're trying to say something through our instruments. We're singing, we're giving something to the audience. And if our main goal is basically to go out there, I mean, how often do we just go out there and like we're just trying to play the right notes and the right rhythms and try not to miss something, and our mind goes to, oh no, I don't want to miss this high note, or I want to nail this lick, or I don't want to have an airball attack on this. And if we're thinking that way, then our minds are set into a monitoring standpoint where we're just checking how we're doing along the way. And it's not a good place to be, because all we're doing is looking for a result, and we're checking how we're doing versus the result. Oh, did we hit that note or not? Oh, okay, I feel better. But we're not actually giving anything to the audience in those ways. So I like to think, what is the music asking for? And if I look at, say, all right, we all know the national anthem, bum, ba bum, 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 ba bum. So what does the music want? I think it wants to be declared. It wants to be praised. It wants to be stated. It wants to be convinced. And if we think of playing our music from that kind of standpoint, that's where it helps with the nerves. That's where you feel grounded. You are then giving something of yourself, and there's a bigger idea out there that you're giving, rather than, oh, I hope I sounded good. Did I sound good? What did you think? And we're actually shooting something out into the world, rather than like, oh, I hope I did well, or how did it sound? And this is a common fear that all musicians can get into. And so there's a way to sort of bypass those negative thoughts, those negative self-talk. I mean, we can all raise our hand that we've all thought, oh no, I might miss this note, or, oh no, I did miss this note. Now I'm frustrated, you know? So
once it leaves the bell, it's history.
Once it
leaves the bell, it's history. So Alex, if you would like to continue, please.
So I think the best way to experience this and to know what I'm sort of talking about with playing with words like that is to try it. So I was thinking maybe we would have our first performer play, and we'll have you just play, and then we'll maybe work on some of this stuff through your playing, and you can see how it feels. And then after her, we can everyone's muted, so I'll give you an example or something, or you can pull up something, and we'll try this out. But let's have just one person try this first, or let's hear from one of our players. And then I can keep explaining some of this as we go, but I think it's better to see it in practice and then to feel it yourself. Was there someone who wanted to play was there a horn player or any of our trumpet players wanting to play?
Yeah, who's going to play, Logan or Daryl or, yeah?
I'd love it.
Awesome.
This is awesome. First of all, thank you for volunteering. Thank you for having something prepared. It's really great to have a performance experience in quarantine. You might have forgotten what it feels like. So let's give this a shot. Who would like to go first? Who would like to go second? Maybe is what I should ask.
Guess I'll bite the bullet.
You want to do, oh, yeah, okay. All right. Then Daryl will go first. There we go.
This is Daryl. Hey, Daryl. Where
Sounds
are
good.
you?
Wait,
Where can I
all
see?
right.
Oh,
I'm,
okay.
I'm gonna bite the bullet.
Great. Love it. Way to go.
Earl.
Why don't
All
you
right,
tell us
Daryl,
what
you're
you're
up.
going to play? And
Do
who
what?
Why don't you tell us what you're going to play and who it's written by?
Oh, yeah. I'm Daryl Lees. I'm gonna play lead by Bozo.
Great.
Or try to, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone, give him a round of applause.
Cool.
Daryl, well done. It's a nice, beautiful melody. You play it
Yeah.
with a lyricism and a sensitivity to it. And thank you for performing for us. That was awesome. I'm curious to ask you if there's something that you were trying to express through this or say through this piece, or if anything has ever come across your mind as why maybe you're playing this piece or why those notes are there for anyone to play.
I don't know, because it sounds pretty.
Right. Yeah. Actually, all right. On what message you were trying to share with that piece? Maybe that's a little bit better clue into what I was meaning to say. Is there a message you were trying to share with us?
Not that I can really think of.
Cool.
Mostly just trying to express everything the page says and things that I think should be better or make it sound pretty. Like, yeah, I don't really know.
A little vibrato. You put a little hand vibrato on a couple notes.
Yeah, because that's about all the vibrato I know how to do.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. First of all, it's totally okay that you haven't necessarily thought through the concept of this. And that's why we're exploring this today, because you're not alone. Generally in instrumental education or instrumental music, we're not really thinking about this as much. So because we don't have words on our page, we don't actually have lyrics that we have to convey to someone, we haven't really been shown to think in this way. So I'm trying to present this as the thing that's helped me the most, and the thing that really, the thing that grounds me in performance, the thing that makes me feel better or play better with nerves. is knowing why I'm playing it and having a motivation for what I'm doing. And when I think of it that way, it becomes, it's more like I become the interpreter of the music, and it's going out through my body to the audience, rather than feeling more like I'm just trying to play the right notes and the right rhythms and do as best I can. I'm trying to give something of the playing. So when I hear that piece of music, I hear the word love as something that I think you could try to express through the song. There'd be some other options too.
I kind of think of the pieces like kind of somber.
Somber, cool.
Yeah.
And so this is really cool. So you just said, I think that's an adverb, something that describes to describe it. And that's a lot of times how our music teachers have talked to us, and that's totally cool. And it's how this is stuff that I learned. By the way, this is stuff that I learned. I got thrown into a Broadway show as an actor who played the trumpet, and I had to learn how to act. So these are skills that I've learned from my experience as an actor on Broadway. And basically, a director will talk just like a music teacher. They'll talk in a result. They want it to sound somber, okay? So the director will say, this scene needs to be more somber. And so then the actor goes out there and they're like, well, what do you mean exactly? Like, so what an actor does is they translate the adverb or the adjective into an action verb, something that they can play, and something that you've felt. All of us have felt action verbs and have done action verbs since the beginning of our life. So basically, we've all, like, action verbs are anything you can do. So you can, if you place in the phrase "I can," the word after that is an action verb. So if you chose somber, I can somber. That wouldn't be an action verb. So that's just a way to clue you in if you've picked an action verb or not. But I can soothe. I can charm. I can love. I can lure. I could even seduce. You may be seducing with this piece. You could be enticing with this piece. You could be persuading. And so you sort of find the action verb. And I can type some of these into you guys for you guys to try in this next round, because I'm going to have you pick your individual piece of music that you want to try. But for now, did any of those stand out to you? Any of those words stand out to you, Daryl, for your piece?
A couple, yeah, soothing, like loving,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah.
I didn't really get seducing.
Yeah,
I didn't. Yeah.
No, probably maybe persuading. I'm just looking at my list here, and I'll send this list to you guys. But I've basically taken all the action verbs, and I've made taken them down to about 20 that are really good for brass playing. And I think those are probably the best on the list right now too. It could be convince, but let's try. What did you say? Soothe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Soothe is one of my favorites. So now I'm going to ask you to play let's say just the first phrase of this again. And to be honest, I don't care. The point is not, I don't care about what comes out of your, technically, like if you make a mistake. The only thing I want you to focus on, your clear intention will be to soothe, to play in a soothing way, or to soothe us with the opening phrase. All right, and everyone else take a close listen and see how you feel as an audience member too. All right, so Daryl, take it away.
I'll try.
First phrase. I know this is an experiment, but wow, what a long phrase. First,
Yeah.
and awesome job.
It's kind of the first thing.
Yeah, no, I think that is pretty much the first phrase is that long, which is wild.
Yeah.
That seems like you went the full sentence. If we talked about that as being a sentence, that sounded like a full sentence. It was a very complicated sentence. And so therefore, this is cool music where we could break down inside one sentence. We may have more than one action verb that we could put in there. we may start off with soothe, it may move to this, but it's going to be based on what the music is asking for. And what we would say is, what is the truth of the music?
Right.
So that's why, having a list of words like this, I like to keep on my music stand. And then it becomes basically a matching game. But the matching game makes me discover what is the truth of the music, what is it asking for, and then I play one of these action verbs. And so I'll type all these into you guys. But Daryl, how did you feel performing at that time comparatively to the first time?
I would probably say more focused on like trying to make it like that, like soothing. I guess that's the best way I can try to describe it, is just being more focused on making it more.
Okay. Then do you think you had more or less? Would you say you had more or less what I call trumpet thoughts, which would be a technical thing coming up, or a fear, or any kind of trumpet musical thoughts that way? Not musical thoughts. Do you know what I mean?
Thoughts.
Maybe a little bit.
More or
Yeah.
less.
I think maybe a little bit more because I was just having to focus more, but
Okay.
mostly
Now,
because I was put
Alex.
on the spot.
Alex, you're talking about trumpet thoughts as like, oh, I hope I don't miss this note, or I hope I don't miss this slur, or I
Yes.
hope I don't chip this note, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I'll keep this note high, And
Yeah.
I basically I want you to think of those things in our homework when we're in that afternoon session, when we're practicing, and even in the nighttime session, we're thinking of those things. But we transition out of that when we're performing or leading up to a performance, and we start, I think, by the first time we ever hear this piece. Let's say you just listen to this piece for the first time. I would want you all to think, okay, what is the music asking for? So we start with this stuff, and the next thing we could do is to figure out to whom or what are we soothing, and then we could make a story out of this. And all of this then grounds us into knowing why we're out in front of the orchestra playing this solo, or while you're even just in your lesson, why am I playing this solo? I'm here, I'm trying to give something in my performance, which is something of myself. Like, how to, like, you've soothed a pet of yours or a family member or someone, and you're essentially bringing your life experience then into the music. And it becomes interesting to listen to as an audience member, and it makes your performance valid compared to someone else's. That makes it valid because we've heard an incredible top level trumpet player record this piece. But what makes this interesting as to why Daryl's version is interesting and important to hear? And it's because you've brought it to life through who you are as Daryl. And we've given it its own life. So
Right.
I know that may feel weird to try on the first time, but I would really urge you to experiment with this more and more. And I'd like everyone to experiment with this for a little bit. So does everyone have their horn nearby?
I do.
Yeah. And
Yep.
maybe pull up a piece that you've been working on. We're going to try and fit this in. Pull up a piece that you've been working on or have prepared. And because everyone's muted, don't worry, no one else is going to hear you. But I just think it's really important, or we can do it all at the same time. We can all hear it. But I want you to feel, because I feel more grounded as a performer. I feel more relaxed. I feel like I'm playing offense rather than defense. I feel like I'm giving something of myself rather than trying just to play the right notes. And I feel grounded. And when I was in the show as a performer, as an actor, this is what raised my trumpet playing to the level, to my highest potential that I was at that day. Just by changing my thought and by being focused on these things and playing in action, I played up to my full potential. A lot of times in a nervous situation, we can lose our potential. We can play under where we're supposed to be, under where we normally are. So pull up the piece that you're thinking. Does everyone have a piece? All right. And I'm going to type in some of these words here and maybe see if any of these words, just look at your opening phrase. Okay, so this is we're just gonna think about the opening phrase for now. So what is, that's confirm, sorry. Think about which of these words gosh, I can't type. Matches with your music. Anyone have any questions? I'll skip seduce. Don't worry, guys. That's really good for Carmen. Anyone know the Carmen preludes? Carmen, yeah, with the cello. Oh, yeah, yeah. I think that works great for that. So it's not a bad word. Don't worry. Brag is really, really good for high notes. I know that sounds like duh, but like if you play a high note with the idea in your head to brag, it's not that you're being as egotistical to other people or out there, but you're doing a trick in your mind. You're doing something different with neural pathways, and it's going to make your body feel more free to think about that word. You're going to go for it. You're not going to ask questions. Have you guys heard this phrase, make statements, don't ask questions in your playing? You may have heard of it, you may have not. It's not that important, but it's just when we aren't thinking of something, then more often we're going to get into this negative self-talk or the
Trumpet talk.
The trumpet talk. Yeah.
And or French horn talk.
Yeah, or French horn talk, exactly. So and I played French horn in a show, so I sort of I've checked these with some of the French horn material, and they work there too. But if the French horn players in the room have other words to suggest, go for it. And the last one, accompany, because sometimes we're playing second trumpet or third trumpet, and we need to accompany the first person. So if our goal, what we're trying to say is accompany, then our mind is focused on listening better too. So this is the short list. So sort of play the matching game. Match your opening phrase with one of these words, or one of these words with a phrase, and try it. Try it for me, and see how you feel. See what happens. All right. Does anybody want to share? Did anyone notice a difference maybe with a raise of hand, just maybe how your body felt? And a lot of times we need nerves to be involved in this performance for you to really feel the result of it. But it's absolutely something that we should do in our just daily practice, because we get used to these ideas then, and you figure out maybe there's something better, a different word that's better. But did anyone have a positive result with that they felt differently? Cool. Hey, Josh, would you mind unmuting and just mentioning what you feel or what you noticed?
My word I picked was warn, but it could also be like declare too, because the beginning of the solo I was learning, it could be like going into war. So it had a little bit. I was playing a little bit more dynamics that was written on the paper.
Ooh, cool. So it actually affected your dynamic range. Awesome. Did you feel like you might be more? Yeah, I think that's great. I don't need to necessarily elaborate more on that. From you, who else would like to chime in? Thank you for sharing, Josh. That's cool. It changed your dynamics. Deb.
Logan.
Oh, right. Okay.
He's on the mom's iPad.
I actually, mine's really demanding. Like, it's like, look at me kind of so I guess it's like a bragging, but it's more like a punch. I'm playing a concert etude by Godecki. Yeah. Right. And so it was more, the notes felt more robust, if that's the right word to think of.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I got.
That's awesome. Very, very cool. So it affected how you played it. right away. That's what I'm saying. As soon as we change our thought, we can reach that full potential, and it's drastic. It's sort of like you notice something right away. You didn't have to go do anything more. You didn't have to go in the practice room and do something and work on the technical side of it. This sort of overrode the technical stuff, and you then sounded better. I'd love to hear the concert etude. Dave, I know we have an hour and we're technically there. I don't mind at all if whoever wants to stay on way further than that even. But I'd love to hear the concert etude in a second. Does anybody else want to chime in with their experience? Yeah,
Go ahead, Alexis.
I feel like I played the first movement of the Richard Strauss Horn Concerto.
Cool.
And I feel like it has so many words that describe it because I feel like the tone changes a lot. So I feel like the first word for like the very first like was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measures.
Yeah.
Is announce.
Yes.
Announce.
Bum ba bum. Here I am. I've come to save the day. Bum ba bum bum ba bum. And that's what we can talk about on the next class. Would be adding lyrics to the words too.
Yep.
So I love the words "Here I am" are great for anything. The beginning of Haydn Trumpet Concerto for us. Here I am, I've come to save the day and rescue you. Something like that, you know. This is from one of my teachers who played at the Metropolitan Opera, and he had to stand on stage for like 45 minutes with a cold trumpet and then pick up a trumpet out of nowhere and play a fanfare. And he was scared. And he's like, he was in the New York Philharmonic for 25 years, and he's talking about being nervous, all right? So he said that's the story he created in his mind. He created a story too, and he used those words. Here I am, I've come to save the day. And that propelled him. It gave him that motivation, that boost of confidence right before he played, and a motivation and an understanding of where he was and what he was trying to do. So that's the point of this stuff. And I know they're very probably novel concepts. We all know this word novel now. But thank you for sharing that, Alexis. Anything else did you want to add? I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh no, you're fine. After like my whole 22 measures of rest, and then you come back in, I feel like it's more of a dance there.
A dance, okay.
Dance describes it.
Awesome.
And but like it's weird because you know like then you play that whole dance section, then you sit out for another like 12 measures, and then you come back in. But I feel like there, I feel like it would be confirmed, maybe, or like Claire. So I just tone in in this one just changes a lot.
Well, that's super. And there's a lot of dance in the end as well. And maybe a brag with the high A right before. So it's like, gosh, I love that you're thinking ahead to more pieces of the music, and maybe we all are. What that does is it gives, first of all, we have a cheat because we have our music on our page and we're generally reading music, right? So by looking at the music, we can write in our own handwriting our action verb on top of the music. An actor can't do that. The actor memorizes their actions and then they play the action. And no matter how the line comes out, as long as it's come from a place in your soul as declaring or loving or teasing, then it doesn't matter how you say the words. And I believe the same is true with trumpet and with every instrument. I don't really care if what comes out is wrong right away, as long as what's inside is truthful and you're playing and giving something more than just trying not to mess up or trying to hit the right notes or play the right rhythms, then you're coming from the right place. And over time and over that homework, that practice, the second practice session, your batting average is going to get higher and you're going to get better at those passages. So it's about coming at it. It's about like the process rather than the product. We've heard those phrases before. So don't worry about the product. It's not about hitting the right note. I don't really care. It's about the process of getting there, and that will help you skyrocket from whatever point you're at now till later.
Alex, would you say it's a bit of it about being a trumpet player or French horn player as opposed to a trumpet musician and French horn musician as opposed to a trumpet operator or French horn operator?
I love that. Yes. Yes. We are. if someone asks you, hi, what do you do? A lot of us will often answer, I'm a trumpet player, right? Or I'm a French horn player. The answer that I would like you to think about is I'm a musician or I'm an artist. And you'll feel like you're more of an artist or more of a musician when you develop more of these concepts. We have to operate the trumpet, yes, but that is not what is interesting to listen to. It is not interesting to listen to a trumpet operator. It's interesting to listen to an artist or a musician. And these are things that will color your performance, make them interesting to listen to. It will ground you as a performer. And it's, I think, the way to connect with the audience and for them to want to come back and hear you again. So I strongly urge you to experiment with this stuff. The next step of this would be to ask yourself, to whom or what are you doing that? I'm declaring this to the Queen. And then I develop more stories. And then I develop, what is my relationship to the Queen? I am, it can go as far as possible. And the cool thing is that then also comes back in to help you under stress and under tension. That will ground you again by remembering those things and by living in this story that you've built. And that's why actors can go out there and give lines that aren't their own words, have to cry in front of an audience. Everyone is watching them and there's sometimes no one else on stage, and they feel like they have a Superman cape on them. And that Superman cape is this stuff that they've worked on. And this is one technique that actors use, but this is the technique that I find really, really helpful to me as an instrumentalist. And this is sort of part one of the things that I'm taking from the actor world. I was certainly a musician first. I'm certainly still a musician. I was a musician throughout all of this, but I'm now applying another medium. And it's not just actors, because singers have words, and so they're actors as well. So our singer vocalist friends at school, they will understand this if you start to talk to them about this, and that they're a good person to talk to. But it's just something that the instrumental world doesn't really teach, because we don't have words. And it's not just at Arkansas. This is sort of a very broad thing, and it's cool. I'm really glad to have you guys part of this, because this is a very you're at the cutting edge of some stuff here, and I hope that you take this and experiment with it. And you can always ask Dave questions or have him get in contact with me to continue to talk about this if you want to.
Actually, I was interested to hear how the Gedeke would work with this.
Thank you. Yes, me too. Deb, could we hear the Gedeke?
Yeah.
Yes, Deb.
Yeah, Deb.
Cool.
Bravo.
Thanks, Logan.
Gosh, your air, both of you two. I like this. This is a good reflection on Dave too. The air columns that you're using for Deb, from what I can hear, and Daryl, from what you were using, it sounds like you're really like the air column is thick and wide and like, I like to think of like a Mack truck instead of like high notes and like lead trumpet kind of stuff is more like a Corvette, like racing really fast and tight. but both of you guys seem to use a very solid, wide airstream that's going sort of slow and just like, it's thick. That's both really from both of you two. Yeah, how did you feel that you started off comparatively to how it ended up? Oh, sorry.
So I'm using my mom's iPad, and her name is Deb. So
That's gotta
it's okay.
Nice. Okay, wait. So it's Logan. What did you write?
Logan, yes.
Cool. Very cool. Sorry, Logan.
It's okay. Okay, the question was, how did it feel?
Yeah. How did you feel performing the piece from top to bottom? Did any trumpet thoughts come in your mind? How did you maybe feel connected? Did anything change throughout the piece for you? It's not so much about, oh, I missed that note here or there, but I'm just curious how you felt in general.
Actually, there were, to my knowledge, no trumpet thoughts really. It was, I don't know, it's like for me, I don't know if I was doing it physically or not, but I was kind of like ha 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 ha, like through half of it, because in my head it's like, this is really weird. It's a Russian dance battle. So you got one guy that's like dancing, and then like all the like 16th runs are the other guy coming in, and they're like, my turn. And then he's like, oh, please don't, my turn. So I'm dancing with them in my head. So I'm not really thinking about anything.
My work is done. My work is done.
Just throw them up. You're done. Put it away. You're done. Done.
This happened to you in real time. This story came to you as you were playing it. You didn't even need to sit down and prepare this, right? This came to you, or was this maybe this could have been a couple of days ago that you thought of this, or in the past, or was it as fast as in the moment these visions and these thoughts came to you and you were involved in? Awesome. Do you guys all hear that? I know this may sound like this could take a long time to go do all these action verbs and everything, but she literally just did this in real time, and eventually you'll all be able to do it in real time too. You can, like, the really advanced version of this will be to sight read with action verbs, to sight read a piece of music that way. And I feel like you just performed it so many times. I heard something come out of your bell that just sounded interesting to me. And I don't know if Dave, maybe you've heard or played this before. I don't know if anyone else heard something that sounded that way, but I was compelled and I was brought into your performance. So thank you for giving something in your performance. And I'm not taking credit because I feel like you have probably a natural way of doing this already. And if you do, fantastic. And if someone who says, oh, I wish I could do that more, this is a way to get into it. This is one of those ways to have like the it factor, to find that special thing. So I don't know, Deb, do you feel like, or Logan, you feel like this, I don't know, I guess my question would be, is this normal for you to be able to come up with these kind of things? Have you thought about this way before? And through your experience just now, would you be like, oh, well, yeah, I should do this to other pieces?
I have in the past, but it's not like a regular thing I do. And usually it only happens when I perform. So when I'm practicing, it's definitely all trumpet thoughts. And so when I perform, it just kind of goes out the window, and then I'm like, okay, and then things happen. So, but right. I probably should do that more in practice too.
Yeah, it does work in technique. In technique practice, you can play Clark studies with the idea of soothing. You can play with the idea of enticing. You can apply these into technique, and my body just becomes more relaxed than it was, and I feel like I'm having more fun. And really what this is doing is it's making you have an active brain. Your
right.
brain is being active. And who has experienced the fact that we play better if we're in a happy mood, or if our mind is active. If we're in a bad mood, our playing reflects it. So this is all connected to up here, and we're sort of connecting here and here together. So marrying these things, but say if our heart's not really in a good place, if we're like, let's say it comes from there, we're not in a good mood, we don't play as well. and we certainly don't play as interesting. We don't take as many risks, and we have to take risks as a trumpet player. And I felt like your performance, you took a lot of risks, and they paid off because your technique, that second session of the day or the first session of the day, you've been doing those really well. And that's why those sessions are so important, is so that you can then take a chance in a performance. And that was great to hear you play.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great job, Logan. Thank you all for being here. This is really fun to talk to you all. I'm happy to stay here longer if you guys want. I know we're already over time.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say we only have a couple of minutes left in this session. So I think, but I just want to thank you, Alex, for coming on. Everyone, thank Alex for coming on. I mean, if anyone does want to ask a question or anything, if you have anything you want to ask Alex before we log off, please, I mean, raise your hand, ask away. And we could have another session, but I know that other people have other obligations and stuff like that, and we're already over our class time usually. But obviously, if you want to stick around and log in again, we can still continue the conversation if Alex doesn't mind. Yeah.
Whatever you got, I'm more than happy to.
Cool.
Two things I'm gonna send 2 links to you guys. All right, I just sent this first one. Can everyone please copy that into another somewhere else that you guys can find that again?
Chris Carrillo is awesome. I saw his session at ITG. He's fantastic.
So these are, as just we're a small business and we have to create opportunities for ourselves sometimes. And these are some great opportunities and some ways to think about what you might want to do with trumpet playing in the future. And we don't all have to be professional trumpet players. I mean, please don't come and take my job, No, I'm kidding. Please play whatever you're interested in terms of trumpet performance. There are ways that you can be a trumpet player forever. And so here are 2 links that I just found really helpful that you guys can check out after the session, and use those as ways to find opportunities or things you may have never thought about, like a cruise ship thing or amusement park or summer festivals. I hear someone's going to maybe the Rafael Mendez Institute. Those kind of things are fantastic, and please take advantage of those. And
hey, Alex, if I could cut you off real quick, we're about to be cut off. And we'll just restart the session. If people want to log off, that's completely fine. But if you would like to stay on, we'll stay on for a little bit longer. I don't want to keep Alex for all night, but if you have to log off, I understand. But yeah. Thank you all, and I'll see you in your lessons this week. If you want to keep logging in, I'm just going to re-up this thing, and we're going to start it up again, okay? So I'll be right back. We will all be right back.